Good evening, everyone. Welcome to May's Go Speaker Series. It's great seeing everyone this evening. For those that have not attended in the past, the Go Lab Speaker Series is a monthly event where founders and leaders share advice on how they overcame challenges, capitalize on their target market, and develop their products, providing you with actionable insight for your own products and processes. For more information, you can find us on Facebook or online at deargolabs.org under our Speaker Series tab. I'd like to thank our sponsors for this evening's conversation. This free event is presented by Go Labs and is sponsored by CGI, Valley Beverage, Thomas College's Harold Alpine Institute for Business Innovation, and Bricks Co-working and Innovation Space. In addition, this conversation is being recorded and will be available for later viewing on our YouTube channel. This evening's conversation is presented by Richard Rulin of Matter Services Chief Growth and Product Officer, and Chris McKenzie, Stark Systems Vice President of Strategic Partnerships. In this speaker series, Chris and Rich will discuss their careers in professional selling, how to create winning customer retention strategies, and how to grow your customer base. And without further ado, I will turn it over to Chris.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Chris McKenzie. I was asked to tell a little bit about my company first, and then I'm going to, two of my favorite subjects are sales and Stark, right? Clearly. And let me tell you a little bit about Stark, and then we'll kick it further into sales. Don't have any expectations that you're going to walk out of here being a first-class type A seller. But we can talk about things that you can think about as you're pursuing sales. My work with early-stage companies has a lot to do with the fact that many of you are so well-versed in the product or service you've created or invented, but how to promote it and how to present it to other folks is usually missing to some degree. Hopefully that makes sense. So hopefully I'm going to show you a little history about Stark. What is Stark? Stark is an acronym. Simple, telescopic, airtight, reusable containment. Containment is the key word there. So whenever there's any renovation or restoration, well, keep in mind, we started January 1st, 2015 with just 2 of us and then 3 of us, right? Now we're up to 80 people. We're shipping worldwide, all right? And we're in tens of millions of dollars of revenue. But we started with just 1 seller, and that would be me. So what was my story to the marketplace out here? What is temporary containment? Whenever there's any restoration or renovation that takes place in a healthcare or any other environment, you have to create an envelope and quarantine the dust and debris. The way it's done today is people use drywall. So in a healthcare facility, if they're doing any renovation, and believe me, there are thousands of renovation projects every day going on across the country. They have to build that envelope before they can even begin the work, because you've heard of healthcare-acquired infections. People with compromised immune systems can get sick or die from the dust and debris from the project. So you've got to seal it off. And the way they do it today is with drywall or with plastic. And you've all seen the plastic curtains in various places. Well, from there, we've created, what do I point this to? We came up with a erector set of individual panels and sizes that replace building sheetrock. So you can put up 100 feet of wall in an hour instead of 2 days. You don't have to build and create dust and debris and noise, and you don't interrupt patient satisfaction. So when these walls are up, look what they look like. And they can go up very quickly and swiftly. So we started selling from Maine into Boston. And then from Boston, we took off. And now, like I said, we're in all 50 states, all the way to Japan. We're in tens of millions of dollars of revenue per year now, looking at the second round of investing. And that started, again, with just 3 of us at Tech Place in Brunswick. And we were building these panels in a place no bigger than half this room. The 3 of us were assembling them. From there, now, we've got a great story to tell. We've won a lot of quality awards, renovation awards. And you can see how good they look when they're up. And so that was essentially, from the standpoint, it all started with a sale. And that's why Rich and I are here, to discuss sales. How the heck did you get all these customers? And you recognize most of these, Lynn. If you're in the trades, if you don't know these Turners or Skanskas, they're billions of dollar companies, billions of dollars. And they lead the whole world in healthcare renovation. So we're fortunate to have them as a customer, as well as specific healthcare facilities, in addition to other verticals like LaGuardia Airport and Pfizer Lobby, all sorts of other places. So we're used hundreds of times a day across the country, and we're growing almost double every year still at this point. So the market is just catching on to us. But how did you get all these customers, Chris? What is the secret to getting all these customers? I'm not going to get into pipeline management, but you get a sense by looking at this particular slide to realize that folks like Rich and I now, where our organizations are we've got tens of thousands of contacts in the database. And from there, it trickles all the way down to maybe a sale. Those percentages are not that far off. So once you get rolling with your company and individual databases, you will have that many prospects. Short term, you're much more surgical. You're looking exactly and all. This is my first advice from sales. Whatever you're building or making, have a short list of the likely targets for you. So very short. Who are you going to call on? How are you going to call on? And all the individuals' names. This is much more sophisticated, but ultimately you want to get to the presentation or meeting stage, right? And when you get to there, the most difficult thing to do in sales, and this is my sales difficulty chart, if you look, on the bottom left is the easiest part, existing customers and existing product. So selling existing product to existing customers is the easiest sale in the world, right? It's a reorder. It's mechanical. Now you've got to maintain customer relations. You've got to make sure you continue to be efficient and respond to their needs, but that's the easiest sale. But to go further down the line, selling a new product to a new customer is the most difficult sale ever. And you're all in that world, right? You all have new products, you've got new ideas, you've got new concepts, and you've got to sell it. Everybody's new. So that's the most challenging. How the heck do you go from there to having customers with those logos that I just showed you, right? It's one victory at a time. Clearly. One thing you don't do is show up and throw up. What do I mean by that? I've met many of you at various networking events, many early stage startups, and Susan and I have met down in the Portland area. And once you ask people what they do, what do? They machine gun you. They machine gun you without asking any questions, without determining whether I have any interest, any need, what my pain points are, right? Because it's human nature to be thinking about ourselves and our product and service. But you've got to move away from that. You've got to, it's called emotional quotient, and immerse yourself into the mind of the person with whom you're speaking and what are their needs. And how are you going to get there? Professional sellers are problem solvers. Your solution, whatever you've invented or whatever you've created, solves a problem for somebody. It came out of a need that you have developed within your own creativity and mind. Either you experienced it or you know people who use your service or product. That's why you created your companies, right? And it's better, faster, quicker, slicker, smarter than whatever else is out there, is my assumption. I'm sure it's your assumption. It's certainly your belief. But our job as salespeople is not to show up and throw up. There's a tendency for new sellers to want to do that, to demonstrate and illustrate their knowledge and strength and aptitude. Wrong way to go. You should be doing 20% of the talking in that first meeting. 80% comes from your opportunity. That makes sense? It's called, listeners, we're professional problem solvers. That's it. But how are you going to find out what the problem is that you're solving without asking the series of questions? Does that make sense? So professional sellers, to me, are exceptional listeners. Whenever I hire a sales rep, there are two things I look for. And I explained that to Rich the other day, at least from my perspective, is curiosity and resourcefulness. Resourcefulness is creativity. I've worked for Procter & Gamble, and I work for a company with just two of us in the factory, right? No matter the amount of resources that these companies have, your resourcefulness will make you a better seller. Your creativity, your ability to adapt. You're always going to have challenges. But trying to solve their problem requires exceptional questions. You must be naturally curious. If you're not naturally curious, force yourself to be curious. And when I say curious, be sincere about it. That will lead you to the questions that lead you to your solution, that lead you to solving their pain. But you cannot solve their pain without learning what their pain is. And I can get into all sorts of examples of what phraseology you use and things along those lines. 15 minutes won't give us that, but understand that is your criteria. If you get a meeting to pitch your new service, great opportunity, don't show up and throw it. That's key. You should know a lot more about your prospect than they know about you at the end of that meeting. And we all have a tendency, who's our favorite person in the world? Us, right? Well, mine's Rich, but mine's naturally. But seriously, it's what everyone thinks about. But if you're naturally curious, or if you create the discipline to be curious, you're going to ask the great questions. How does that affect you? And actually, one of my favorite books along these lines. And the reason I like this, and you guys all know, for first-time sellers, there's a million textbooks out there on selling, a bunch of DVDs. But the reason I like spend selling is because it's based on data. It's based on hundreds of thousands of sales calls and the components. And actually, a lot of sales coaches teach their sellers to always be closing, right? You've heard that. You know the movie, Always Be Closing. Close, close, close. Spend selling teaches you to close less. Use less closes. Because guess what? Your professional buyers are former sellers for the most part. They're human beings. They know when verbal manipulation is in play. It's not sincere if you're closing. Gee, would you like to see me Tuesday at 3 or 5? That's out of 101, right? And you've all been part of that. You've all heard that. Well, I'm not available Tuesday. Why? Why'd you pick Tuesday? Why don't you ask me when I'm available, right? Which day would be most convenient for you to be able to demonstrate what we just talked? And let them make, especially as an early stage, you'll take any time, right? Clearly. So the desperation is different. And I'm talking now as selling as a startup. But the reason I like this is the line of questioning. Now, there's a million charts to show a sales process. This one oversimplifies it. I get it. You close less, but the investigation stage is the most critical. And how are you going to investigate if you're doing all the talking? Are you really investigating if you're doing all the talking? You need to determine what their need, want, pain is. You're not going to solve a pain that they don't know they have until you create the pain, create awareness for the pain, and then elevate it in the top 5 issues that they have. Honest to God, temporary containment in the construction industry is not a top 10 concern. By the time I was done, it was in the top 5. And by the time we created that need, right, I got a pretty good solution. And by the way, my solution costs $500 a lineal foot. The way they're doing it now costs $100 a lineal foot. Mackenzie, how did you do that? Well, we had to find out exactly where their soft spots were, where the deficiencies were. Once I uncovered that, I was able to position my product to overcome those deficiencies. Make sense? Sounds simple. Obviously, it's a craft that develops over time. But the line of questioning and how you uncover pain is mission critical. But if you don't learn anything from me tonight, learn this. Talk less in the first meeting. It's about them, not you. They may be interested. They may be excited for you. You got a new company. You got a new service. You got a new technology. That's all very cool. But you find out first how your technology is going to apply to them. And of course, if you did your homework, you already know that, right? You prep for that. But let them bring it out. And then you know, how's this question work? If my ex could solve that problem Y, what would that mean to you? What kind of answer do you think you get out of that? You get the roadmap to success when you ask a question like that. If my product can cure that pain, what would that mean to you and your team? Well, these 50 things will happen. Well, then you don't even have to come up with the answers. They did. It's not verbal manipulation. It's just professional sales, professional interviewing, for lack of a better term. Make sense? Any questions on that?
It feels like we should both be up here at the same time doing a song and dance. We should be doing.
Let's be soft on it.
Because we could definitely take the oxygen out of this program. We're so simpatico on so many things. So for those of you on the camera watching online, I hope you are. You're recording this. My name is Rich Rulin. I'm the Chief Growth and Product Officer for Matter Surfaces. We are a relatively small company, founded in 1971, family-run company based just south of Boston, Massachusetts, that literally started with the founder of our company selling doormats out of the back of a wood-paneled station wagon. And if you paid attention to Chris's slides and some of the logos he threw up there so quickly, he and I are going to have a conversation because one of my lead clients now is Kaiser Permanente. We are the key EPP provider for very technical, biosustainable, organic flooring for this largest nonprofit healthcare organization in North America. How in the world did we get there? I can tell you that we did not get there by showing up with a bucket full of products and dumping them on the table. He calls it show up and throw up, so do I. But it's also called spilling your candy in the lobby. The most comfortable we all are is talking about ourselves or you as entrepreneurs, your baby, what you've developed. You are the most comfortable talking about what you've spent your entire life getting to this point to take to the market, and they should fall over themselves, beating a path to your door for your good, your service, or your SaaS. So I just want to do a few, without focusing on my company and my products. We, by the way, are growing at double-digit growth rates. I almost didn't get a chance to tell Chris yet, but his comment about asking probing questions, open-ended questions. On my drive to this call, I got called into a meeting with Santander with one of our owners and one of our national sales reps. And he was doing the classic, I've sent you 100 samples, which one do you want? It's like, thanks, Ross. Do you mind if I just ask a couple of questions? So I had the global procurement for Santander Bank, and they are keenly focused on sustainability. So all it took was for me to ask one probing question about what's your global corporate strategy for engaging sustainability in the built environment. And then I shut my mouth. And I got the owner to be quiet, I got the sales rep to be quiet, and the bottom line after that 20-minute phone call, we are going to start doing business in North America with a bio-based polyurethane flooring based out of Germany that meets their sustainability needs. And he would have been more than happy to send another 20 samples in the door because we can do another phone call 3 months from now, as opposed to actually driving the engine forward. So it's not rocket science. It is defeating your own human nature is what it is. And it does involve sort of some myths, some mysteries. One size fits all. Chris already said it, ABC. Sales, true professional sales, and every single one of you online and in this room, you're salespeople. You're selling our concept. You're selling your vision. You're selling you need a day off. You're selling that you're going to get a grant. You're selling your children on good behavior and eating their broccoli so that you can go out and play this weekend. You are not always be closing, because if you're continually asking the question, yes or no, that's a closed-end question where you're trying to force them to a decision, you all know what happens. The wall goes up, you don't get true engagement, you're not making direct eye contact, and Zoom, believe it or not, we can all do direct eye contact and going, where is that camera? Oh, it's right there. I can't see you in the screen below, but you focus on the camera so that you're not focusing on closing, but making direct contact, which I'm doing with all of you right now. And it's not formulaic. I really want to make a bond with the people that I talk with. It's genuine. And you have to be able to convey that. So what I just said sounds like just an extrovert, right? I happen to definitely be type A. If you've done your Myers-Briggs, I'm an ESTJ, and I'm off the chart on E. I love interacting with people. You don't have to be that person. Garvin, who's nodding his head in the back, he didn't know that I was setting him up at the start of this. He's an I. He's relatively towards an introvert, but a phenomenal salesperson for this area, what he does for business development. Another, so desperate for sale. Chris just said it. It's a new product, it's a new service. I need a sale. I've got to generate some revenue. A sale at any cost is not really a sale. And another myth is all buyers are liars. If you believe that someone is responding to you and you have to overcome them, then you've already established an adversarial relationship. I'm going to fight you, and I'm going to fight against your misgivings and your lying to me because I have to win. The best win is the win-win where you develop a client, not just a customer, which I'll get to in just a second. So the close fast, close cheap. Got to get this closed. Someone's asking me for revenue. You might be the founder. More than likely, founders of new startups are the first salespeople, and they are generally the worst salespeople in the room. None of you want to hear that because it's your baby. You are too close to it for the most part. You want to be able to partner with someone that understands, oh, slow down, take a breath. Let's ask some great questions and let's get there. And this is one of the fundamentals. Because I built it, they'll come. Kevin Costner is not in the room. Simply because you built it, they are not necessarily going to beat a path to your door. The mystery in sales. Again, Chris did this. I'm going to pop these up really quickly. To most people, sales is like, I've got to input some stimulus. So I've got products, I've got service, I've got pricing. I'm going to add some marketing. I'm going to create brand awareness. Who am I? What do I do? I've got a great logo. I've got some stationery. Not so much anymore. I've done some, whoops. Thank you very much, Serena. I'm engaging in social media. Who does not engage in social media this day? We do it personally, we do it professionally. It's all around us. We're bombarded. And man, I hope something happens. Hope is not a plan. A plan is a plan. The ability to go out and actually structure it, not formulaically, but authentically and transparently, is how you make a customer. Make a customer, not a sale. And better yet, make a client. I love Chris's example, and I love my company's example, because it was literally selling customers mats. It was literally, I'm going to go out and try to sell some wall panels. You're not doing a transactional sale. It's not a one-timer. You want a client. From the Roman version of client, I trust you. I trust that you're going to do what's right for me, and I'm going to do what's right for you. And Shakespeare, I happen to love literature as well. I'm crazy about it. Love history, literature, great at Trivial Pursuit, love craft beer. We can all go nuts after this if you want to. But for Shakespeare to say, to be or not to be, this really is where professional salespeople shine. So be present and have presence. I'm going to make you all uncomfortable in just a minute, so just be prepared for that. Be confident. You do know your product. You don't need to spill it all at once, but you do know your product, your good, or your service. Be confident and be calm in that. Be resilient. Be prepared to pivot. So I'll build on what Chris had said. If you're asking the right probing questions, the answer you get, like you might say, oh, Susan, I just heard you say X. Would you mind giving me a little more detail on that? And all of a sudden, who's doing the talking? The person across from you is doing the talking. If you just listen and are resilient and prepared to pivot, and you prepare so that it doesn't sound inauthentic, it is real, it is truthful. And if you don't understand something, what's the best thing you can say? Chris, would you mind if I slow down for a second? I didn't really understand what you just said. That's uncomfortable, right? Because I'm stupid, I must be stupid. I didn't get it. Just asking for clarification allows them to say, oh, that's a vulnerable moment. Who would expect a salesperson to be vulnerable? You're supposed to be armored and ready to go to battle. Just not the case for professional salespeople. Consultative selling, that's what it is. It's not about your good, it's not about your product, it's about your client. I'm choosing that word carefully. It's about your client. Customer maybe the start, client ultimately the goal, so that you're consulting on what's important to them. And be poised. Be professional. I could add to this. I could do a ton of B's. What you can't be is in the back. You don't need to be an extrovert, but you do need to be bold. You need to have presence with the goal of becoming a trusted advisor. Because who in the world doesn't want to work with someone that they know has their best interests at heart? So those are some of the goals. But presence is one of them. You don't need to have an overarching voice. You don't need to be bold with how you're flailing your arms around, but you do need presence. So does anyone know Amy Cuddy? Amy Cuddy was an adjunct professor at Harvard Business School up until 2017-18. And she wrote a paper and a book as well as a TED Talk that I strongly recommend that you take a look at, because her presence is based on biofeedback that our bodies, right now, everybody's doing what I would expect. Sitting, it's awesome that you're taking some notes. There really is some in this that I think is valuable to everyone, but you're in your comfort zone, aren't you? It's comfortable. I don't have to interact with these two people up here who clearly do this all day long. But what you do need to do is recognize that your physical presence influences how you interact. Everybody comfortable? I'm about to make you very uncomfortable. Everyone stand up, please. I want you, yeah, see, the first instinct is put my hands in my pocket. Nope. I want you to take your fists and I want you to put them on your side, just like this. That is a power pose. That is biofeedback. Yeah. Shoulders up, chin up, confident. I am absolutely ready to have a conversation with any one of you about your vacation. What do you like for wine, Emily? How about bourbon? I think that's going to be in Kentucky. Lisa, do you think you can get to Bangor, get to that part of the Freedom Trail that we talked about? I think that confidence that you look at all of you. Every one of you is smiling right now. It's true biofeedback. Okay, now I'll let you sit down.
Oh, it's still with me.
No, that's okay. As long as you're doing this mentally, whether it's Superman or Wonder Woman, I assure you, every one of you is capable of that mindset. I am confident, I am poised. And this, it's tough to do now because of the Zoom that we all do. So you can't really get up. I used to do it before I went into a meeting. Seriously. And if I have a really important call, so Kaiser I mentioned is one of my very important clients. They're my top healthcare global client. They are tough cookies sometimes. So I will Susan can attest to this. We have 3 dogs. They're in and out of the room. It's okay if they're in for me. I will occasionally do. Got this. We are good at what we do. We are valuable partners, and I drive results for them. That's all it takes. And I believe each one of you believes that you have that level of confidence. Do not short sell it. So before you get on a Zoom call, if it's an important one, don't be closing immediately, but do be confident. If you take nothing else away, do that, because we all kind of do this.
And I will add and contribute to the fact that there is a tremendous TED Talk by Andy.
Yeah.
Find this. It's easy to find. CUDDY. And the psychology is amazing.
It is so worth it. It is so worth it. It's all based on science and data. It's not just a couple of guys that
animals do it.
Yeah. The posture. It's posture and poise and presence. It really is presence. It's not fight or flight from the animal thing, but it is presence that you have. So just want you to remember Shakespeare. To be or not to be. Do not be this. Do not be, what's it going to take me to get you into this car today? What's it going to take me to sell you this wall today? What's it going to take for me to get this floor from you today? That is not who you want to be. So some of the truths, your company is unique, believe it. The greatest sales skills, listen. It's tough sometimes because you want to talk because that's where you're the most comfortable. Make yourself uncomfortable and listen. And the first time someone says something that sounds interesting to you, oh, Lisa, thank you for saying that. Take a breath. Let them finish their thought. Pay attention and make eye contact, but listen and ask great questions when it's appropriate. Don't interrupt them. You're trying to get walls to drop to become a trusted advisor, not jump in to make it all of a sudden become even a jarring or sparring match. Nothing sells itself, and hope is not a plan. Kenny Rogers had it right. You got to know when to hold them, and you got to know when to fold them. Sometimes no is no. Maybe just right now. But what we have is like, oh, if I can just get another meeting. Really? Is there an action step that's going to come out of that next meeting? Is that the win for you? Sometimes it has to, you have to make yourself uncomfortable. What's going to happen at that next meeting? I'm happy to schedule it, by the way. But what will happen at the next meeting that is different than what we discussed today? That's uncomfortable, right? You're asking, your time is valuable too. Your product, your good, your service is valuable. Your life is invested in it. You don't want to waste any of that. So you've missed something or they've missed something. And maybe, as Kenny said, it's time to fold. Generally, it's just time to hold. But sometimes it's time to fold. People buy from people. Unless you have developed, I always get someone that says, well, what about Steve Jobs with the iPhone? Do you know what he did to get to that point where his tech release was viewed like that? He had 30 years of building to get to that. But everyone thinks that's a lightning bolt that changed the industry. It did, but he got our attention by building through the personal computer. We forget all the steps that took place before and focus on that momentous event. People buy from people, and they buy from people that they trust. Now, that's not always at just the purchasing level, but you do need to know that their job may ride on your character. Me making a decision to trust Chris to spend 5 times as much to use his system, it's like, you better be telling me the truth. And you shouldn't have to get to that point. If you've done it right, you have a level of trust, it has made sense, you've asked the right questions, the budgeting works, and it makes sense for you both to move forward. And sales cycles are real, and it is different for every one of you. Whether you have a SaaS, whether you're doing a good, whether you have a seasonal product, every sales cycle is different. Some are very short, most are relatively long, and can be as long as 12 to 36 months. We're not going to get any cash flow it takes to support those. But the sales cycles are real and they're different. It is a marathon. You all know this. You're entrepreneurs. You get this. It's a marathon, not a sprint. If you're here for a sprint, you're probably done already. Or you got 7 figures in the bank and this is just a passion project. And there are some of those that are valued, but it's not this. And the final piece, you really have to document your progress. Who would have thought that's part of the sales process? If you don't know what you've done and when you did it and what's next, how do you even know where you are in charting your course forward? So it can be as simple as an Excel sheet. It can be as complicated as Salesforce. There are a gazillion different programs to use. but document your process. Ultimately, what you're talking about is your unique selling proposition. I'm going to go really quickly through this. I'm going to show some funnels. Chris has already done it as well, and I want to respect the time that we have. It is more about the value proposition that you have, but you got to begin at the beginning, and you got to do the work, because it's not just the end result that you put in. From general to specific, you've got to start with your value proposition and then blue sky it. Where ultimately do I want to go with this? Where is my journey going to take me? You've already done your Tam Sam Som. You've already done your what's available to me, what's obtainable to me. You've investigated your market. At least that's part of the work you should have done if you came through the Ergo Labs. You'll have an idea of what you're trying to accomplish and where you're going. And then you have to come up with what's unique to me. Why would someone want to trust me to help them to solve a problem? That's your unique selling proposition. It doesn't have to be any more complicated than that. If you have an experience that you're providing, if you've got a UX that is outstanding in a specific segment that no one else does, that's your USP. If you've created a software that's usable by preteens, that keeps them off their phone after 9 p.m., that's a USP. So, and then defining who your real customer base is. I normally do at this point sort of a little interactive back and forth. I'm going to skip through all of this right here, but I do want to leave them up on the board so that Chris and I can take some questions from all of you. Basically, if we're having this conversation, I think you get from both of us that selling is not Kurt Russell in that plaid jacket and a used car sales lot, which is what everyone thinks of when they think of salespeople. Truly professional salespeople. It's not altruistic because you're doing it to advance your company, your product, goods, or services, and earning a living for yourself. But you can't and should not do it at the expense of others. People do business with people, and they will sniff that out 1,000 miles away. If you're genuine and transparent, then it gets you to what this is right here. Taking yourself out of your comfort zone and defining who your business is, what you do, and how you can help your customer base. So that's really sort of the end of our presentation piece of this. But we did want you to understand that true professional selling doesn't have just one path. It is not always be closing. It is making yourself vulnerable, taking yourself out of your comfort zone, asking awesome questions, listening, and being confident in who you are and what you provide to your customers.
And be curious.
Yeah, love it. Yes. It has to be transparent and truthful. So I will put someone on the spot if you want to, unless anyone has any questions. Sabrina. Oh, Sabrina. Excellent. So let's put Sabrina on. I love this. If you saw the look on her face right now. So,
thank you.
If you're a great salesperson, I'm probably going to ask you to speak about the chamber. So if you were to go, I'm going to set you up. I'm going to give you 30 seconds to think about it. Growth Council, right? Okay. So for the growth Council, if you're looking to expand membership in the Growth Council, take 30 seconds, think about it. You're passive. By the way, who knows the term gatekeeper? Who believes that gatekeepers still exist?
Yes.
They do.
Yes, no doubt.
It is no longer, this is going to sound terrible, but I'm going to say it anyway. Delete this part afterwards, please. It's no longer the admin assistant out in front of the desk before you get into the corner office. That is BS. The gatekeeper can be LinkedIn. The gatekeeper can be email that you never get past the filter. The gatekeeper can be voicemail that you just don't get past. Mm-hmm. But let me assure you, the gatekeeper exists. And everyone gets excited when you get past the gatekeeper. You have to, at that point, start taking the things that we've talked about. I'm giving you lots of time here to think. You shouldn't be listening to me. You should be thinking, oh, you too. Oh, you too. That's outstanding. We are going to, anybody want a beer and a shot? This is the difference between arrogance and confidence. Because I ever turn the floor back over to Chris, and then the two of us are going to moderate with you back and forth. But that you're past the gatekeeper. This is a live meeting, the one we all want, a live meeting. Now, it could be live on screen, because those do still count. You should still have your presence with your shoulders, but yours is going to be live in person. So guess what you're going to do? You're going to stand up and come shake hands. That's what you're going to do. So this is a meeting with a decision maker. Tell me what your objective is going into the meeting. You're not coming over here yet. And you're going to need Chris.
What's my goal for the meeting?
What's your objective?
To educate.
To educate about what you do. Okay.
And what will that education mean to me in the next step for you?
So in terms of the services that we provide, we'll give you a better overview of how we can navigate the incoming relationship.
Navigate, and what will that do for me?
It will give you an idea of what I can do to assist you, and then from there we can
assist me with what? What's my problem?
This will be fun. Let's find out.
Okay,
let's find out.
I think the biggest. What's that?
Come on in. Come on. Come on. Knock the door. I'm going to meet you at the door. Role play. Hi, it's Sabrina. Nice to meet you, Rich Rulin. You're here to meet with Chris? Okay. I'd normally make you wait 10 minutes so you can start sitting in your chair. But I'm going to let you come right up. Come on in, Chris. Sabrina's here.
Serena, nice to meet you. Thank you. How can I help you?
I'm interested in learning how I can help you.
Well, my mortgage is high. And it's really hot outside. And I don't like the inflation rate and the political turmoil that's going on. How are you going to help me with all that?
Well, you're in Somerset or Kennebec County. This is your new grant program that we have to give you some money to combat any issues that you have with your business.
How much money do I need, or how much money can I get? Right. All right, why don't we time out right there?
Yeah.
There's a lot that just happened. There are a lot that just happened. Thank you, by the way.
I'm not letting you off that easily. Don't go anywhere.
I gotta fix this.
No, but this was perfect because right away she said, I want to help you. Well, how can you help me if you don't know what I've got? And I just mentioned the whole political, sociological, all sorts of problems that are going on in the world. She's going to help me with that, right? What she wanted to do is find ways for me to get a path towards more funding, right? So what she might have wanted to do is find out if funding was a challenge of mine. There's an assumption that I had a funding problem, which is probably right, but there was no line of questioning along those lines, right? You just went right to the fact that I'm assuming you want more grant money, which probably is absolutely true.
Time out. Okay. We're going to start this over.
He has a lot of advice. You've heard? Why would they done? Yeah. See what that goes. He just gave you 20 years of experience in 10 minutes. Who would have recommended a different approach? That's all. What did you hear and see?
Well, I think that what I saw was just not a straightforward objective going into the settlement situation. So maybe if she had said, I want to bring another applicant for the grant funding that we're managing, that could have been the objective.
And I think I would have just underlined a little bit of questioning to find out that grant would be a good thing for me. There's an assumption of that, but Rich and I will both tell you never to assume anything walking into a sales call. All sorts of good jokes after that word, but seriously, there was an assumption that I wanted to fund.
Yeah, I'm going to do it really quickly, just she couldn't hear me. Hi, Chris.
Rich, how are you?
Nice to see you.
Good to see you.
Thank you very much for taking the time today. I'm ashamed that we only have 15 minutes or so.
Barely, yes.
I appreciate that. So in our first call, when we talked on the phone, you mentioned that funding is challenging for you.
Oh, it is a challenge. Well, we could really use another influx of cash to keep this program running.
So can you tell me a little bit about the program or what the needs are?
Well, we gather students who are learning to become future entrepreneurs of within the state. They're all different disciplines, all different products, all different services, and we're trying to coach and help them to elevate their businesses and become long-standing revenue generators within their regions, within the state of Maine.
That is a phenomenal mission. I'm very impressed with that. What are some of the funding sources you currently use, and how do they? So, do you get the idea of where we're going here? All of a sudden, he wants to talk about his program. That's what I heard him say. He has a passion for making sure that he gets funding for entrepreneurial programs that will generate revenue for his area. It is not about getting a membership at that point to make sure that I can get you grant applications. But I'm taking that information, so I was trying to whisper so quickly in your ear. But the very first thing I did was do what? I did do an introduction, so you know who I am. I thanked him for what? What did I thank him for? For his time. And I gave him an escape hack. When you talk about it that way, some people, they won't take meetings with you. Oh my God, these people will not shut up. And I'm a polite person. I don't want to get rid of them. If you tighten that window, no one is going to give you just 15 minutes. If you only get 15 minutes, you never should have had that meeting. Now, they may do that as a way to make sure that they can get out at 15 minutes. And you should, if you have a watch, which everyone has a phone, don't have that phone's little beep. But if you've got a watch on and 15 minutes is approaching and you're having a great conversation, asking some questions, and you should not have spilled any candy yet, Chris, I noticed that our 15 minutes are just about up, and I really want to be respectful of your time. And then you pause.
Yeah.
Because what's he going to say next?
He might say, I want to talk more. It's okay, I've got another 15 minutes.
That's exactly what you're looking for. That is exactly the objective of that question. And if he says, I'm just about out of time today, Rich, what would you say next? Anyway, I love this. This is exactly what you do this for. What would you say next?
He might suggest, can I schedule another meeting?
But if he did, if he just gave you, I'm just about out of time.
We're done.
I'll say, yeah, okay, I respect your time. How about I send you a follow-up email that has some information that you might need that you can decide on that will help fund your programs. Send you.
So that is completely understandable. I'm going to give you my feedback.
It's very logical, but you might want to ask for another 15 minutes.
That's a death knell.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because what you've just given him is an out. Okay, my time's over. I'm out the door. Send me 100 different things. Send me some samples. Send me an email. Send me some pricing. Does that do anything to advance your cause? You think it does, though. You go back, write it in your CRM, had a meeting with Chris, it lasted 15 minutes, I sent him some proposals.
Really, really interested.
Yeah. How many times the salesperson say, I sent samples, they're really interested. Really?
Artificial optimism is a flaw as well. Right.
I don't want that to sound negative.
No.
That is a logical response.
Yeah.
What you want to get while you're live with that person is, I understand, Chris. If you think you have just 5 or 10 more minutes so we can talk about funding formula, we might be able to assist.
I'd like to hear more about what you have to offer.
Great. So out of respect to your time, would it be best for us if we scheduled something next week?
That makes more sense, right?
Okay. What works best for you? And at this point, you know you're going to take whatever you get, right? You're going to take that date, but you're not going to let them do 15 minutes. You're going to see, just to ensure that we don't run out of time next time. Is there a half an hour block that works best?
That sounds perfect.
Great. Would you mind? Can we grab your calendar right now? You don't have to put it that way, but whatever you want to do to get buy-in at that point, because he's now on your side. Oh, I want you to come back in. I want you to tell me.
And I would have only have done that if I've got a sense that he's really concerned with my need, and I got a sense in that 15 minutes that what he has may be helping me avoid obstacles in my job or role, right? Otherwise, that 15 minutes is all he's got. And all I'm going to give him is my email address, and he can send me, like you said, anything. And
it's going to go to spam, or it's going to get deleted. It's a very high likelihood.
But don't put yourself in a position, because it'll create anxiety in yourself if you think you've only got that 15 minutes to impress. You still made contact. It's a victory for you. You've got a meeting. It may not have gotten to the level that you wanted it to, but it's still a victory, and relish in that victory. None of my sales happen on the first call.
Never.
Especially when we're in the high value business. People spend hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars a year with my company. So what you're selling, of course, is yourself. Do I want this guy around me off and on for the next year and a half? That's a high value sale, right? Personally, no.
It's mutual about that. We'll see what he thinks about it when we talk after this meeting.
Right. Good point. So, but the reality is, even if you do get cut off at that 15 minutes and it's not where you wanted it to go, it's still a victory. You did a great job getting in front of somebody. That is huge. That is obstacle 1A, right? So give yourself those victories. Give yourself pats on the back. If you don't get down to the close because on your first 30 minutes, that's not a bad thing. But we're talking high value sales again. I'm not talking about one call transactional sales. This is, do I want to see you for the next 6 months? Every 2 weeks, right? So you're on trial. And the most welcome you're going to be if you demonstrate that you're sincerely concerned with their challenges and their problems, not yours. Does that make sense?
Let's do a trial with the software sale in school.
Who would that be? Before we do, can we do a little bit of, so I was just doing a couple of things, by the way. I don't know if you noticed what I was doing with my arms. Did you notice what you were doing when I was talking?
You're mirroring him.
I mirrored her. I did. I saw a few of you with folded arms. You need to read your room at that point. It's amazing. Some of you were looking away. You all now have direct eye contact right now. If you were to do this in the middle of it, believe that does not feel artificial to me at the moment. But it is letting me recapture your attention right now. And that's not formulaic, by the way. That's not what he's
Where do you see the cake?
So I did want to just quickly do a couple of these with what Sabrina did. And then I don't want you to compare and contrast. It's not fair for us to do that, compare and contrast. But there are some things you want to make it simple, right? It is all about making it simple. Was it believable? Did you believe her mission? I believe she had a mission. I think it was clarified on the front end. And on the delivery piece, she spilled her candy and tried to get to a close on funding without asking any questions, really.
I want to give you more money.
Right.
Normally that works.
Is it, that's a good lead in. Was it compelling? Yeah. Who doesn't want funding for their programs? But you got to build some interest to see if you can solve a problem there. How unique is it? Probably not crazy unique, but it is. You're working with a municipality that you're probably engaged in. So it might be some uniqueness there. Can you understand it? Yeah, give me money. But it's probably more to it than that to tie Chris to you on it. Will it move you? Yeah, money's going to move you, right? And then did you get an agreement for next step? You didn't, but I was asking for the time. That's the next step. It's very rare you get a first call close. Very rare. If you get a first call close, you better do some analysis to find out why that happened.
And you're selling Girl Scout cookies, right?
Yeah, that could be. And someone has an altruistic need for, oh, I want to give to a good cause. Absolutely. Take 10 boxes. I'll see you next year. Right? Not a client relationship. That's an altruistic sort of value mission is what that is. You had a question, I think.
I think it was around the sort of the closing piece where, especially for a high value sale, if you know you're not, like, the intent isn't even to close in that first sale, you know it might take, I don't know, 5, 10, many meetings. Asking for the next amount of time, or like when can we meet again, or what's the next time, seems to me almost still like down the salesy path, when maybe asking about like what are the next steps. And I guess I'm just trying to figure out what is the balance between asking about the next steps and leaving too much in their court to kind of shut down the process versus being too sort of forward on a sales front when you know it takes a long time and there's going to be lots of meetings before they even get to a point where they're evaluating it.
If you have made a compelling story and somehow shown sincere interest, and really what you have as a spark, you'll get that next step. You will. They'll get a sense that you are concerned for their pain and their needs, right? And we're not talking about being slobbery and blubbery and all empathetic. I mean, you both have a goal there. But ultimately, if you have uncovered the need and you have gone, a next step could be a phone call. It doesn't have to be a visit.
But would you ask them ever to sort of suggest that, or is that
absolutely?
Okay, okay. That's kind of where I was.
We just did a role play piece of it when it's time is up. I was making a point about respecting the time.
Okay.
If you've uncovered, so in my world and in Chris's as well, particularly at high level, whether you're EVP or at C level, that time is incredibly precious, and you better have uncovered at least 1 or 2 compelling moments that move forward. So in my world, close to his, it can be the flooring. So there are only 2 components of every building that 100% of the occupants interact with. You probably get from bills. I said that pretty quickly. Does anyone know what they are? There are only 2. Floor, bathroom. Yep.
Doorknob.
It just came on.
Air,
floor, and air. You have to ambulate, you have to breathe. And someone's going to challenge me. Architects challenge me all the time. What about the light switch if I'm blind? What if I get carted by a wheelchair? The wheelchair touches you, touches the floor. What if I'm unconscious, still breathing? What if I have to open the door? What if it's not a back switch? They get very frustrated, but by the time you're done, if you've done it the right way and led them on this journey, you're right. There, floor. It's really important. Chris, do you have any idea what commercial environment has the highest for air turnover? Now, that should sound interesting to someone in healthcare, by the way. It should sound interesting. He knows the answer.
I don't know the answer. The biggest
Healthcare. Oh, healthcare institutions have the highest cubic foot air turnover. I did it strictly as an auditory cue, and you heard that kick on. You're all engaged with eye contact. That's a throwaway stat that is true. I just demonstrated to Chris, if he's in healthcare, I understand that flooring and air is really important. I'm not asking for 15 more minutes, but I might say, what do you do when your flooring is damaged on a Friday night? You have a full office.
Yeah, we have to call emergency services and we close the doors.
I knew that answer before.
And we lose some revenue on rooms because those rooms are not accessible.
Who else on your team is responsible? You know where I'm going next, right? To get to the next meeting, I'm asking who are the other decision makers that are engaged in solving this problem that would benefit from meeting with me?
The more
That's what
decision
I'm
makers
doing.
in a room, the better off you are.
Right. So I just want to give you a quick example of how quickly you can pivot. So I said, be prepared, be bold, and be resilient. I'm never satisfied with just give me another 15 minutes. Why? Why do I have 15 minutes? I didn't do my job. You just need another 15 minutes. That's not even worth my time at that point. And my time is as valuable as your time. Now, you can never say it that way. You can never come out and say, Chris, my time is as valuable as yours. You can't do that.
Wasted my time.
But your point is well taken. If it's just kicking the can down the road, and full disclosure, I have plenty of salespeople in our organization that will kick the can down the road so they can report on their monthly meeting that they met with Chris and Chris said, yeah, send me something. When are you going back in? Why am I going back in? What is the purpose of going back in? What was the objective of my walking in the door? Mine, you probably guessed, is about flooring. Flooring standards. Don't you want flooring so you can have full occupancy? Even if it's a nonprofit hospital, they need to generate revenue. And I wouldn't get into my knowing that the most cost-effective profit-generating center in any healthcare system. Anyone know what it is?
Yeah. Oh,
EMA. Oh, wow. I was pointing to Garvin because it's dad. You know, the circuits, they are economic engines that drive hospitals.
and we learned that in my business because those walls, when they do renovate those ORs, they got to be back online very quickly.
And that's a negative air pressure, and they can't have any leak out in the facility because of healthcare acquired infections. So anyway, we threw way too much of you on that right there. But, okay, role play. Susan's calling for a role play. Chris, you run this one.
What?
I'm not a songwriter.
Oh. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Excellent.
Buffalo High School.
Excellent.
I want to go this.
Oh, fantastic.
Okay.
Hi, Michelle. Rich Rulin.
Thank you for taking time today.
My pleasure.
So I was really interested in how your students and teachers are focused on.
So I'm sure you know that for those that are have IEPs, they have their own individual plan for reading, and then at my level, I'm the director of curriculum for the Mountain campus for the entire district. We have about 2,300 students. So I have a lot of that delegated responsibility to some of the admin at each one of the schools to make sure we put appropriate reading lists as an important part of school board. No one's ever going to give an answer quite like that.
I was going to say, holy cow.
But I did want to set the stage. I just gave a ton of information. I'm going to take a soda water to the side. I'm clearly giving a lot.
That wasn't that good of a probing question.
just to see what she can get to.
So what I'm interested in is how do you track?
I'm so glad you're interested.
Yeah, why are we interested in what you're interested in?
Sorry, I'm going to take this apart as we go. It should be fun. And by the way, I should have done everyone round of applause for Sabrina. But we're going to do a round of applause. I wanted you to do a great do and I'm going to do better body language. That's a little more respectful than pull it up.
So I'm really interested in what type of data that you're collecting around your street.
Oh, so I'm not really interested in giving out what your data on my students. But thank you for your question.
I've never gotten
I've heard a lot about what you're interested
in. Really?
You give me a good question. You're very interested. I wonder if I'm interested.
Somebody help her.
Well, this is really difficult because before I met with you, I would have gone to your school,
Yes.
your website,
Perfect.
and all that stuff.
Yeah, what would you have done?
Like I would have done that, and I would have checked to see what kind of curriculum you're using or what program you have, so I would know that ahead of time that you valued independent reading.
How would I know that you did that research?
I wouldn't know unless I told you.
Right. So you can start off with an open conversation. Rich, it's very nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Thank you for taking the time. I understand we have about 2 minutes, an hour, whatever you set the meeting for, and said, yeah, I have about a half an hour or so. Said, you've done, campus looks fantastic. You have a really interesting school district. You know, in my research about what you're doing with literacy across all of your platforms in each one of your schools, I have found that, is this your finding as well? So you're leading me a little bit, and you're not accusing me, because you don't want to accuse, because I know what I know where you want to go, and you know I believe in what you're doing. So, but you do want to let me know that you are on an equal level with understanding what's going on in my district related to literacy. So give me a little bit of that. You would just restate it. You would just restate it. You would just come in and say, thank you very much for taking the time. It's very nice to meet you in person. You've probably done all that. I know you've done all that. And then it would be, you know, it seems like you're a great school. Whatever you use is called a softening statement. Right. So you would soften, you're trying to start dropping the walls. It's different for all of you, but you do need softening statement. If you go, because what Michelle has done is gone immediately to, I'm going to start to try and close you.
I'm interested.
So soften it.
Yeah. So
Chris put up spin. Here, I'm going to give you an acronym. I hate it. There are a gazillion acronyms in professional sales. There's one that's called LACE. It's listen, acknowledge, clarify, and explain if needed. So listen. You'll find it's consistent with everything we're talking about. Listen. Get me talking. Listen. Acknowledge. That's great information. Thank you for sharing that. I found this when I did a little bit of research on your district. I found that. Then clarify. So, are those the results that you want to see in the district? I'm giving you very softball questions, right? I'm sure you have more complexity than you do, but you're getting me to say, clarify. I've heard you say, I'm clarifying that. And then explain if you want at that point how you think you can help solve a problem if you've uncovered a problem. Too confusing? So,
no,
so you came in. Hi, nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Thank you for taking the time. Acknowledge how much time we have.
Yeah.
And then you want to start with some kind of softening statement. It doesn't matter what it is for softening. It doesn't matter. It can be, you know, I saw that Mount Blue won the Sportsmanship Award for the growth basketball season. Congratulations to your students. How many students are participating in extracurricular? That's an outstanding statistic. Speaking of statistics, it still easily segues whichever way you want to go on that. And then you want to, how is your administrative team dealing with what's going on with the literacy standards that you have? And I understand it's challenging. Are you going to hear something? Go listen to that. Acknowledge it. Reflect it if you want to. Wow, that sounds like some really great accomplishments, but it sounds like there are some challenges in there. What I heard you say was, whatever I said, because all of a sudden it's like, she heard me. She's acknowledged that she heard me. At that point, you can clarify, what are the paths that your team are taking to solve that for the district? That's a very interesting conversation instead of me hearing what you want to hear about, right? I'm interested is what you said. Could be interested what I'm interested. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, want to start it over?
Yeah.
Step on out. Take 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Did that make sense to everyone? I'm really trying to do like 4 simple little things there. Come in, greeting, because you're meeting a person face to face. Acknowledge the time, because believe me, people want an escape hatch. And you're meeting with a decision. I already took it off the screen. We assume it's a decision maker. I'm the director of curriculum from Mount Blue. There really are 2,300 students in the district, and we do have literacy challenges. And we do have 40, depending on the school, up to 40% of IEPs in place for literacy. There's a clear demand for this, and I happen to know what you're doing. So that's not fair. Because I wouldn't have researched you, I would have based it just on what you know. I'm giving you a second to think, by the way, while I'm talking. So the other, Chris, you can go right ahead. The other piece is you have to have some kind of softening statement to demonstrate up front that you know about the district, that you're engaged, and it shouldn't be something that's going to help you close your sale. Something you have a sincere interest in.
And you want to get his interpretation of those results as they are right now, right?
Exactly.
What is your level of satisfaction? What would your reaction be if it were better, faster, quicker? And again, I'm not familiar with your discipline, but essentially you want to get his take on it. Not only do you want to acknowledge what you've discovered, but what is his reaction and where is it compared to where he wants to be?
And you don't want to push past that once you hear it. You don't want to push over your goal. You want to listen to what I say. But I'm going to let you talk. But you get the idea, right? Unless you come back. I love these.
I just have one question.
Of course.
I'll give you an example.
Sure.
So I went to Casco Bay High School.
Yeah.
I was meeting one person on Zoom, one person in the room. I asked them got a heads up about their schedule and what they're doing, and they were talking to their schedule. And the principal was like, well, before you get into your big spiel, he said, we value independent reading, we're quality so blind, don't have to go down that road, we care about it, so let's go on. And I said, oh, that's great. He said, so when do your kids independently reading your schedule? And they both looked at me and they said, we haven't worked that out yet.
So you want to cover the problem.
Hey, and then, so.
What did you say, by the way, after they said that?
I said, wow.
Because I could probably work with this.
Yeah, I said, wow. I said, yes, there's lots of different schedules that, schools in the high school can choose from. I said, what type of schedule model are you kind of leaning towards? Or, what kind of schedule model that you have that you're using, that you're finding?
Was that a red flag when they said that? We haven't worked that out yet. Huh?
Yeah, because what I found out in schools, like for me, they for our product, they either have independent reading and they don't know what to do with the data. Like they have no data, no system for data, no process. Or they have this like strict system of data, like we track every single bit of data, but they don't use independent reading.
And which is most beneficial for you? What is most opportunistic? Have the data and do nothing with it.
I don't know, both are pretty
opportunities.
Yeah,
they're both good news, right?
Yeah. The best one is they do independent reading and they have data and they just want our tool to make it easier. That's a win-win. That I don't have to lift a lot for that. But if they're either one of those or both, they don't have both.
But they're having more pain if they're only 50-50, right?
Yes.
That's a greater sales opportunity for you. Because if they got both, it sounds like they're going to be relatively content, right? Somewhat satisfied.
I think if they do the independent reading, but they don't do the data, they don't understand what they're missing.
Perfect. That's actually a perfect scenario.
But if they have the data and don't have independent reading, usually it's a little bit easier because everyone knows independent reading is what they need that.
Everyone knows that, so we're assuming that, right? Are you assuming that?
Well, pretty much.
Can you get confirmation of that in your conversation? Like, wouldn't it be better if this were going, right?
Yeah.
So it might sound something like this. I get your scenarios that you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
You can almost not feign, because to me that's very surprising. Working with first call where someone says, "Don't give me a spiel." My first response really wasn't here to do the spiel.
Yeah,
I was here to have a conversation with you.
But that does give you a light bulb.
It's an opening.
Yeah.
Does it not know that you've got to break down a few barriers before you get into what you're interested in?
Yeah.
Right. Because what you just heard should have sent up flags. Whether they're red or green. I can see green, red, and yellow in there. But your red is like, ooh, there's a problem. I just found a pretty big problem. So it can sound like, I'm very surprised to hear that. Please don't misunderstand. I think I may be able to help you. But what you just described, can you give me a little more information on that?
Yeah.
And then give them some, not leading questions, but some narratives that they can fill in. Where in your reading programs throughout the school, you said Casco Bay High School, where are the greatest deficiencies and the greatest opportunities for improvement with your students? You didn't talk about your program, you talk about where they
Which is a great thing to learn, but you're not going to get their true answers on that until you've broken the ice and make sure they trust you and get through that other stuff.
That's the other thing. They tend to be very, like, asking them that type of question educators take it personal.
Yeah, they do.
So it's hard to, it's very difficult to do something like that because especially like a assistant super or camp coordinator.
What is it specifically they're taking personally? Do they feel offended at the results?
Yeah.
They're embarrassed at the results?
They're offended at the results because you're calling into question their ability to educate.
Can you smooth that out by sort of saying that they're not alone, that it's a statewide problem?
That's perfect. I hear that so much. I hear that so often.
Yeah.
And that's why we created this. But let me hear more about your problem.
Yeah.
So now you just planted the seed of interest.
Yeah.
That's exactly what we're here to solve. But let me hear a little bit more about, what would it be like for you if that was not the case? And I'm not using your vernacular by any stretch of imagination.
But boy, you just detailed sort of an ideal selling scenario.
Right.
Yeah.
That's really fantastic. So I guess the only takeaways that I would give you in that circumstance like that are softening statements.
Yeah.
You cannot be confrontational anyway. And the confrontation, people misinterpret confrontation and think they have different points of view. And they really are. You're trying to drive your point forward to close the sale, but you really need to understand what's going on with that.
And you don't want to be uncomfortable to share that with you.
Right.
So you need to drop those barriers all the way, whether it's by association. This is a national problem. This is a local problem. This is a state problem. This is a society. Don't get into the society too much.
They're not alone in that challenge. But you know that.
And it also builds credibility for you. I hear this 90% of the time, 100% of the time. When I'm at conferences, when I'm working in development, this is a drumbeat of concern that I hear among professional educators. And it is a problem that I think society should be looking to solve. That's not accusatory, but it does put you out there as I really have done my homework. I understand the market. That's what you're telling them. They wouldn't interpret market. But I think I can have the sketching of a solution for you. They're probably going to want to hear more about that. If you didn't accuse them, you just want to keep lowering those fences. And then once they're low enough, you can get to call to action. Because we haven't talked much about a call to action. And it's probably not the right place for it, but you might be able to get there on that call. And it might be looking for a demo. With what you do, that might be the most appropriate. Do you have a beta test that we can do as a test study? Or with a small group where you can determine whether or not my solution might work for your high school. There's no one, as long as you're not going to the national curriculum and we have changes and that type of thing, you're probably going to get that if that's where you are in your development side. And that would be a phenomenal close, in my opinion, because once you have a test study going, and you really are believable, you understand their pain, you can solve the problem. You manage that properly, you just created a client. Once your client is dropped into the stream, you need to duplicate that success.
But I don't want to overlook, and Rich is brilliantly correct on that assessment, but I don't want to overlook what she said earlier on that would have closed that bridge immediately. Do you remember what that was? I'm interested in, right? That sounds clinically insignificant. It's huge. It's huge. It's huge. It means that I'm here for me. And how many of you gotten the emails who want to set up an appointment with you? I love to sit down with you and blah, 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 blah. I don't care what you love. I don't even know you, so I don't love you yet either, right? I don't mean to be offensive, but think about that. That it seems insignificant. It seems natural to say, I want to learn about your problem. It's sincere. You're coming at it the correct way. But when somebody hears that, why do I care about what you are interested in? You haven't gained that trust yet. Now, there'll be a time when you do. You can learn more about their systems, processes, back-end stuff. You'll even hear the gossip right on that, right? It goes on. It's just, I believe me, I've got pages of that, right?
Yeah, we both triggered, I think, on the exact same thing at the exact same time. I'm interested.
It was like a liquid show.
Yeah, this all. I actually, I don't even want to do this anymore. I'm done. So I would recommend changing some kind of opening like that, just with an acknowledgement up front. Nice to meet you. Thank you for having me in. Acknowledge the time. Something about that.
And how do you turn that around into what they're interested in, or what their pain is, or what they need? You are there as a solution. You're not there to cure your interest.
And pick a school pride on it. Something that's recent that shows that you're engaged and informed without having to say, I've been online and I've looked at your data that you made publicly available, and it looks like you guys really stink at this. That's not where you're going.
Your scores are
can help you.
Yeah. John, you want me to fix that?
You get it, right? And we know it's a problem. And for all of you entrepreneurs, you get that you're like, if they could just see how awesome this is and what I've made, if they can just see it, you have to do the work to get
I
it.
need to acknowledge and congratulate, though, you were in with the principal. Yeah. Right? And who else was in that meeting?
The curriculum coordinator.
Congratulations. Okay.
Yeah, I know. It was like right before vacation too.
You mean their vacation?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that's something to keep in mind, though. Do you really want to be the last appointment before their vacation?
No.
Still,
I don't. I don't, because they're going to be in canoes, camping, drinking, whatever for the next 5 days.
And then they're coming back all the problems.
They're going to like, oh, I forgot I committed. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, that is a subtle skill, but you kind of like a Tuesday morning meeting would be good, right? I mean, just saying. So that way you have a few more days to follow up on. A little stuff, but it comes natural for you and I to see that stuff. We're fortunate that way, yes.
I'm curious what you actually think about that phrase or that term, follow up, when you're using it in an email or conversation.
Next steps, how would you like to proceed next?
Yeah.
Follow up is certainly used internally, but they use it too. They use that language as well. It is trite, without a doubt. There's a number of phrases you could be more clever or creative at.
And I have a very visceral response to follow up. We only use it internally. We don't use it externally at all. We do look for.
Even the term next steps is trite, right?
We actually talk about action items.
What would be the next steps for you, Mr. Prospector? I'm gonna go take a nap. I don't know what we're doing.
As opposed to,
Mr.
McKenzie, what are the action items to move towards a resolution? That's a whole different animal. So I like action verbs. That's just my personal preference.
And you might even hear some clues that you know the suggestion that you have is spot on. I tell you what, why don't I bring in a few of the pieces next month and we can demonstrate it to you and your staff.
Who else should be here, right?
You might each give a quick example of a situation where you were like, quickest way to know is the best solution, like where you left the sale because this was taking too much time. Your fail fast, fail cheap over fail. You were like, this is just not worth my time. I should move on.
You go first, right?
Well,
we all have them.
Yeah. In my world now, honestly, and we are well versed enough that I'm not even there unless I know there's going to be progress, right? And that sounds arrogant, confident, or whatever, but I can determine that on the phone. In many cases, I really do. So I don't go.
So what are you listening for?
I'll get into budgets, interest, aptitude for leading edge, in addition to whether a number of questions I can ask in my specific business. How do you do about that now? We use plastic. We use plastic curtains for blood. And how does that work for the health and safety of your patients? It's good enough. All right. Now, so if somebody is good enough and we're very high end, clearly I'm not going to go dragging butt in there. Now, the next piece behind that, though, is in my business, like his, I deal with contractors a lot who do work at that facility. Now, many of those contractors might want a competitive edge. So if they use my stuff, they usually win more business than they don't if they're using other techniques and things. So I'll get around it that way. But I'll go, if I really need to be in that building, but that particular target, that particular individual is not mine, I've got different avenues in the door and then the decision-making process. But go ahead, Rishi.
Yeah, so I'll give you one from mine. So I'm not going to use names, particularly since it's being recorded, but it was a subcontractor based in the Portland area who was considered to be like the big gorilla in the room. I was relatively new in the territory, but pretty experienced in sales. And I had gone through an evaluation. I covered 3 states of my strategic accounts. They were one of them. They were part of the biggest GPO buying groups for flooring contractors in the country. And there was a roadblock for me, which should have been an access point, which was the general manager. And he continually pushed me. I bring in samples. I need more samples. I need a free mat. I need a free floor. I need a logo mat. And I eventually got to the point where I said, I'll use his name and hopefully he's not watching. Dave, I'm done. I'm not bringing in another thing. You can't do, he literally exploded at me. Essentially, do you know who I am? I know exactly who you are. Here's the name of my owner and the phone number. You can feel free to call him today. He called me back within 2 hours, said, can you come back in? I came back in, and they went from, they're going to sell it small amounts, from a $10,000 a year account to a $200,000 a year account with negotiated business. So that was I was prepared to fire him because I could have just given more free product. I could have given you a discount. I could have given you more demos. I could have traveled with your salespeople. Why? Why? Ultimately, I think you were headed down the path of, if you're just getting another meeting, get another meeting. Why? Why are you doing that? If you really got to the point out with him, it was just, did you have a backbone? And it really called him into, he didn't say it that way. He said, no one has ever talked to me that way. He said, they probably should. He said, I don't know what they're going to do, but I can tell you what I'm going to do. If you do business with us, we're part of your network, then I will ensure that I am doing ride-alongs with your salespeople. I will ensure that the largest project worked on that will be there to support you. And that's what drove. It had nothing to do with best price, best product. It had to do with that be brave moment. Yeah. So that was a really quick day. I literally walked out the door and within a couple hours, like, oh,
We call that the takeaway close.
yeah.
You take the business off the desk and say, we won't sell to you.
And you'll find out at that point. And I had others that went the other way. So we had a division that was called janitorial. We were like the rubber maid of the world. We sold to everybody. Everybody had the same price. Therefore, if everyone has the same price, no one's important. So if you're not important, why are you doing it? So I closed like 8 distributors. Just come. And then the 3 that I had left said, you're my preferred partners. I'm going to partner with you in the market, no different than what I did with this guy, Dave. And all 3 of them tripled, quadrupled.
Oh, you would teach their revenue too, right?
So I drove profit, margin, increased sales for them, expertise, support in the field, made it easy and simple for them to do business with my company. And I wasn't like a chicken with my head cut off trying to get to 25 different places. Mm-hmm. So that willingness, Susan saying, fail quick, fail cheap. This is more than be prepared to fire your customer. And I would never fire a client, but I would fire a customer.
And there are times when you actually, as you get bigger, stronger, faster, and do more commerce with certain companies, you will do a profit and loss assessment of that particular company.
You will.
And you will determine, you'll find out that you're losing money with a high volume user. And firing a customer is brave, but it's logical. Ever have like fire
a customer at your startup?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I mean, it's yeah.
You have to.
Yeah. We would always, I mean, we would do it typically. We would, they may not be a customer yet, but they might have been a customer and then tried to basically have us bolt on all these consulting sort of arrangements. We're now like IT consultants and all these things in exchange for like a huge amount of revenue early, but it was revenue that wasn't core to our business. It wasn't scalable. And it was a hard decision to say, oh, we're not going to take it. It's going to like
sell it any cost.
We might, yeah, exactly. Yeah, revenue and profit are not synonymous. Clearly.
How about the flip side of Susan's question in that scenario of you identify a pretty serious impasse, you're getting objections, obstacles, but you think there's a there. Strategies in delineating, should you focus time on energy at the impasse and overcoming those objections?
It's a tough entry, in other words, right? It's a tough sale. It's tough to get in there, but that's why you're in the business. And you know, we can give you techniques on that, but it'll change by business. I'm sure you've got some examples whereby the mountain was extremely high. I can mention Mass General, for example, were very significant, very challenging. They were very comfortable with the way they were doing it. I was fortunate enough to have had made success with some of the contractors that were working at UMass, and I certainly brought them in as endorsements for me. But obviously, you want to find a champion within the organization that can be helpful to you, without a doubt. Or in my case, it was a contractor of the particular facility. Mass General now uses my stuff in their 1 million square feet all the time. And that's a great hospital for us because there's always renovation going on. Great piece of business. But that was a long haul up there.
So I'm going to give you the same example. Let's just say, since it's being recorded, in theory, it may have been a hospital organization very much like an organization that rhymes with Crass Emerald, and that they had a long-standing incumbent vendor that they were using for 100% of their facilities, and it was 100% the wrong product. Yet there may have been decision makers that were taking on some trips to certain locations that, you know, it lended credibility, let's just say, to their use of that material. Let's go with that high-level statement. However, it blocked. It never happens in this industry, does it? And yet it blocked any other competitors from it. So you have to choose at that point, you know, with belief that you've got the right solution for them. You've heard from other places that this is the right path to follow. So it's persistent at that point. And when you get the pivot point, which for me is very recent, and it happened to be at the C-level, but it was a C-level meeting with 24 people in the room. And if you've ever done, some of you've probably done those kinds of meetings.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it was from the organization itself, contractors, subcontractors, all the way down through. And it was a very, very, I'm telling you, that was really one of these moments.
Yeah.
And there were three of us that went in, and whether fortune good or bad, I was the one that did most of the talking, hard to believe, right? And the result is that we will have about a $6 million contract.
So what kind of trip did you buy?
You know what?
On the company jet, on Bahamas.
Principle, it's purely out of principle, nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. We did an 80 square foot test floor. And that, by the way, was enough for, let's say hypothetically, it might have been environmental services that wanted to prove, although you built your credibility, you have to know that industry. This is, you are balancing on a razor blade, it's Occam's razor. And you're going to get questions from 23 different stakeholders that every single one of them has, they want half want to crucify you, half want you, if they don't really care, and one or two are your supporters in the room, and you cannot go your supporters.
And that is another whole class, by the way, as a group presentation, which would be 2 or 3 more people. Who is the saboteur in the room?
Yeah. There's always covered.
You want to know who that is. You want to know who that is. And not because you've got to conquer it, you're not going to win them over, but you want to know, be prepared for the blind side, right? I mean, over preparation, neither one of us mentioned it, but a lot of what we both have done is a result of over preparation, like the homework you did on this group, right? I mean, I can almost tell you, no, not almost, I can definitely tell you the 12 questions I'm going to get, every single one. And I already have the answers for them, but I make sure they bring it out, like it's an original song from them, right? But you want to know who that saboteur is. Hopefully you develop an emotional quotient and can read it while you're in the room. And there are ways to get around and go through and go over them or have them become an asset to you.
Right.
Ultimately, right.
And the best way to do it is not to look past them.
Oh, clearly.
It's to do this.
Give them attention.
Direct eye contact, direct discussion while you're, that's a great point that you raise. And I understand why you would acknowledge them. So, and it's not for them that you're doing this. It's for the rest of the room that you're doing this for. And then you don't ridicule them, but you certainly take that argument apart to try to move it off the table without sounding confrontational.
Although in the back of our minds, we're both human, and we probably sometimes think that's the most incredibly stupid thing I've ever done.
You just we can't let it come out of your mouth.
I am dumber because you said that. That's what you think.
Really?
I am dumber because you said that, right? This our own little mental game that
you just suck the oxygen out of it.
But we've never, ever, that would not be good citizenship or a good sales technique. Really. So not only are you learning what to do, we can coach you on what not to do. Because we've probably done it.
Guaranteed.
Sales meeting.
Huh?
What's been your worst sales meeting?
The worst sales meeting that I was running it or a member of?
Oh, no, you were running it.
Oh, running it. A couple reps came in after a late night, right? So you have a conference, you're in a foreign town, like Orlando,
National sales meeting.
Orlando, Vegas, or New Orleans, right? First of all, don't bring amateurs to either one of those guys. And of course, during it's a concert, so you've got a booth and you got a presentation. I would like to have readiness review meetings before we send them out to the pit. This is what we're going to do. This is what we're looking for. Make sure we find people from this company, that company, that company. And when they do come to do, coordinating everything. And these guys stayed out just way too late. I think they were just getting in, as a matter of fact. And you have to set an example of that, which is hard because you get it, right? But, we're there for a job to do. We're spending a lot of money. That's a significant expense. Our conferences are very significant. And you don't want to turn into amateur hour. Not only that, you don't want to be spending bond money either. So I bail money for these folks. But on the other hand, that's why they're high, because they're gregarious and outgoing and they're fun and whatever. But I would call that my worst sales meeting because I had to acknowledge it right there and take care of things right there and fly other people in. And,
Yeah, I really can't give you all the details, but right. We just said we're not going to go there. Pay for strippers? Well,
they got the owner, right? That's another sales technique that we should have taught. Company credit card, that's closing, by the way.
Oh,
that's after We should probably, I mean, if you want to hear it, never mind.
Yeah, we can talk. We can talk your ears off.
Right. Any other questions?
But that's a great question, Darwin. Sometimes that's a.
Yeah, and I'll tell over a cup of coffee, we'll share. You'll be horrified, your face will melt.
So I've always been taught in sales not to ask for the close until the third meeting. Is that you?
That's formulaic.
Yeah.
It depends on your industry. So I know what you're doing. And I think I know how you're trying to get there. That's way too boxed. It's way too black and white. And actually, Michelle was a perfect example. Her first meeting, it very rarely happens, and you need to be prepared enough. When you're done, when you get those buy signals, it could be the first time.
Yeah, I've gained commitments on the first meeting. I've gained commitments on the 52nd.
Yeah, right. I've been told not to ask. Not as soon as you meet someone that you're not supposed to ask for something.
So
no, you have a right to ask. You're there for a reason, but you'd like to ask for their knowledge and their interpretation. What is your reaction to these results that you're living with now? What are your thoughts on that?
So I would say it's a give get. If you're going to ask for something, which I actually hate that term, but that's a good point. You have to have an expectation of a give get. If I'm going to get something from you, you should expect me to give something back to you. It should be an equal exchange. And what you're describing is probably someone that's like, I want you to be closing, and I expect by the 5th meeting that we're going to have a pipeline that's developed. And that's okay. For some people in some industries, that's okay. But there is no hard and fast rule. I will say if you're asking for a close, I would ask you not to do that. I'm reflecting asking for a reason. But the give get.
And the buyer or your prospect, even though in your mod, you may be somewhere in the sales process in your mind, okay, we're on step B right now. The person with whom you're speaking better not know that. As far as they're concerned, it's a conversation. And it's the art of conversation that you'll learn to master. But ultimately, you'll be able to start reading these things. And again, when you say a close is very different in many different issues. You want 100 today or tomorrow? That's kind of a hard close. Or the next step, which is kind of a goofy thing to say, but how will this progress going forward? You want some type of progression to take place, clearly, which may not be a close by any stretch of the imagination. And customers, I can honestly tell you this, that my best customers bought from me, they weren't sold by me. They want to buy from me, but they don't want to be sold. Nobody wants to think they've been verbally manipulated, right? So make them feel like they're buying.
Everybody wants to buy. Nobody wants to be sold. Nobody. So if you've done your homework, which I know you have, and you've identified your target audience or your target destination, very good sense is what they can do for your company and what you can do for them. So that's my give get. So if you can make it clear to them, whether it's on the venue side or whether it's on the client base side, what you can provide, an opportunity to experience the hospitality in the state of Maine, the BIPOC community where you would not have expected it, that's a big give.
Right.
What do you expect back? Right? So if I could open this experience to the clientele that you have, how would you go about promoting that? That's a presumptive close. Don't go there. Don't do that.
And how would your clients feel about that experience, right?
Right. So because you're making it a soft into the experience at that point, and it's your belief on it. If it's the destination, it's like, have you ever had exposure?
That's another way to close. This time, if it says you're going to buy,
I would love to have you come, right?
Right.
So that's the give get easy. Try not to do the formula get to the third meet, but third meeting is like third date, right? It's like third date. I've got some expectations on the third date. So
what are those?
I can't imagine. It's a cold beer and a hot dinner. You know what people? We all kind of be laughing at that because everyone knows where I'm going with it. It should never.
I'm not sure on this
level. I'm sure you don't. As I'll explain later, we're going to talk. But you know what I mean? Is if they already believe that you have a formula in place, like.
This is the third.
Yeah, this is the third. Okay, third.
Yeah, third meeting. That's good news. But if you're at a third meeting, that's a good news. That's
yeah.
And then if the next steps are, I'm going on vacation and I'll get back to you at the beginning of June, how would you approach that? If you had a big meeting, it went well, and now you're waiting on that.
He's going to give you the answer to that. Go ahead.
No.
Let's put something on the calendar.
Absolutely.
So your first day back, it's going to be crazy.
No,
I'm sure it's going to be
doing
crazy for you. So are you back on Monday or Tuesday? You're back on Monday. Whoa, wow, that's going to be tough.
And while you're on vacation, is there something you'd like me to do for you?
How about Tuesday or Wednesday? And what can I prepare for that meeting?
Right.
And is there anyone else on your team that could be present that would be helpful to you? Not helpful to you, but helpful to you, the client. And you're going to get, you know what, let me pop up. You know what, can we do Wednesday morning at 10? Wednesday morning at 10, no matter whether it's fine or not. Let me look. Oh, that's perfect. Don't give the immediate.
Yes.
Oh, that's perfect. Yes, I'll take it. It's like, let me just take a quick look at me. Flip anything open. It's like, you're going to make that 10 o'clock slot available. I do.
You see if you can bring other people, if you think other decision makers in this.
Is there anyone else that should be in the room with us, or who on your team would be helpful for you? Not helpful for me, but helpful for you.
And you know, that's a very important piece that I don't think I covered well enough in my gig, and by asking about other people, who they're going to affect. Reason being, in my job, we're calling on a lot of project managers, but that project manager has 30, 40 people working for them. My product changes their behavior, changes the way they do things. I got to get buy-in of their soldiers, right? I really do. So I really want to meet. I want to give a demo. I want to talk through it. At the very least, make sure, because that fear factor of that one individual to make a decision for the other 20 people that are reporting to him or her, that's pressure. More pressure than spending $500 a linear foot, right? So he's changing their world by buying my stuff. So again, I don't know what you're selling or making, but if what you are has an impact more than just the people with whom you're trying to sell to, you want to get your arms around those other participants as well over time. Because that holds back successful sales efforts. It holds back progress. It holds back closes, because it's not they don't believe you, that they don't like you, they think your product's great, but how do they have the same sales skills you do to communicate it to the people that are behind them? They're affecting other people. It's not just you and that person. What you are selling has impact on their world and their constituents. That changes the approach a little bit. So that's empathizing with them.
Lend just credibility to exactly that.
Because I need credibility.
You'd love to give some that meeting that I described about 24, I'm actually very proud of that meeting that we had. But it was EBS people. That's why we did the small test floor. Because they had questions about how to clean it. How am I going to clean this floor? How's it going to change my daily life? What do I need to do? And fortunately, I was prepared for the answers. But they threw a couple of major curveballs. What do you do with calcium permanganate? And what do you do with silver nitrate? And if you don't know your stuff, you can fail right there in front of. And I was like, you need to use alcohol. Do you clean that? It can't be in a surgical area. And by the way, I think you're putting a test floor in, and we walk away so that you can test it. And this one's very high level EVS. Most people think of them as janitors. That comes from Janus in Rome. That was the keeper of the keys, where that comes from. If you were curious, it was a position of authority within a building, and I've always treated it that way. They're responsible for making my floor look clean, just as they're responsible for making sure his walls are clean. But that right there, that was enough for them to be on that EVS side. She had 6 people with her, and you could tell they were going to take that floor to town. It's like, I better be sure about it. But knowing what those other people would have for a decision-making impact on the buy was really important. Really important.
Because if they love
it, they gotta say it.
Fine.
And those are the, he just said, do the people that are going to be engaged, that can you trust them to sell for you? You can't. You just can't. But this one, if they love them, they're going to go to the supervisors. It gets to the doctors. And once it gets to the doctors, good night, great.
And we all relate to dynamics at work, right? People we work with, people who work for us, or people you work for, right? And the more collaboration that exists, the better, right? It's not a popularity contest, but it certainly is, keeps things smoother. So if the people with whom or to whom are reporting to them are going to be affected by that purchase, are satisfied, are convinced.
Not for you, man.
What the heck?
Are we done? No. You know, so we both read the room so well, right? We look around the room, everyone's still engaged, but it's like, okay, you guys can talk.
Yeah, we got to go. Any other questions about it? Because this is 40 years done this. Right out of college, I've been turning things into cash, right? That's what we do. He turns Max into Cat.
The road show next. Where
Well, we got to fine tune a couple things. Add a few more jokes, a couple dancers, and it'll be good.
All of this. Live, eat, read it. It's real. It's.
Should we start a startup consulting
Yeah.
session like
So you think
Common show?
get some.
Money available for us.
I said the sun always shines. Let me know when you're ready.
That's awesome listening to us. Thank you very, very much.
Yeah, this went a lot longer than I thought, but hopefully it was helpful, or at least awareness.
And at least a little amusing.
But because we've done it for so long, a lot of the stuff is intuitive. No, it's not there yet. And I say baby steps. It really is. If you take nothing away, make sure you learn your prospect's problem.
Yeah.
That's it. And the only way you can do that is listen. You're not going to solve it until you learn it. And even if you know it, let them voice it. That's listening.
Yeah.
Listen, listen, listen.
Don't spill your candy.
Be curious. And don't show up and throw up. Spill your candy, show up and throw up. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you to Chris and Rich for bringing me through that incredible experience. I will definitely use what I learned in my next call. So thank you for that. I really appreciate it.
Awesome.
We can ride with you if you like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're not going to
Well.
fish for you. Just trying to finish.
In response to that, this conversation has been recorded. It will be available for later viewing on our YouTube channel. I would also like to thank our sponsors for this conversation. This free event is presented by Dirigo Labs and is sponsored by Valley Beverage, Thomas College, Harold Alpont Institute for Business Innovation, CGI, and Bricks Co-working and Innovation Space. Have a wonderful rest of your week.